Dr. Peter McCullough.
Wow! Thank you. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. Wow. I'm so honored to be here. I'm so honored to be here. We are at a time, I think, that in many ways is a crossroads. It's a crossroads clearly in our own personal lives, but in many ways a crossroads for the nation, if not the world. We have seen so many developments in the last 5 years, I don't think anyone could have imagined it. Just one after another. We keep asking, what is next? Is it true? Is the video true? Are we witnessing the greatest crime in human history? It's a pretty good case, isn't it? Can we really make America healthy again? Let's examine that. How about adults? Were they really healthier 1970? No. Half of them smoked. Half the public smoked. Diets, terrible. Diets were never good. Nobody exercised. They really didn't. No, we're healthier now, the adult population. How about children in 1970s? Were they healthier? Yes. And I think that's very important. So this idea of instead of Maha, maybe it should be matcha. Make America's children healthier again. Adults, we, in many ways, those in the health freedom world, we've kind of done our job, right? We're living the best we can. We're doing the best we can with diet. We have the first generation ever that's going to have lifelong exercise. We have no idea what that's going to do to longevity in human health. You ever visit anybody in a nursing home or adult living? I do. And I tell you, start talking to people, no one of the generation in their 70s, 80s, and 90s now, no one regularly exercised when they were in their 50s and 60s. No one. No one did strength and exercise, strength and balance. So when they got older and they fell, it was a hip fracture. So it's a brave new world with, I think, a lot of hope. And we want to be the generation of hope. Next slide. I want to provide some hope on this issue. Dr. Gissi has pointed it out, that both the virus and the vaccine load the body with the spike protein, which is the spine on the surface of the virus. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. This is a lecture, so there's an outline, in case you haven't seen. So this is the virus. The virus is studded on the surface with the spike protein. How many people in the room have had COVID? 97% of Americans have had COVID. Your body has experienced this red bud. It was designed in a Chinese biosecurity lab in Wuhan, China, with a US-Chinese joint collaboration, and it was in your body. In many ways, we've all been poisoned by this. Next slide. Who did it? These four individuals, Fauci, Barrick, Daszak, and Zheng Li, were the four ringmasters in the creation of SARS-CoV-2. It's all in the House Select Subcommittee report. It's not controversial. They did it. The word is that Fauci approached Biden for a 10-year pardon to cover him during his involvement here. Interestingly, Barrick and Daszak didn't get pardons. Next slide. It's clear in the evidence timeline in multiple books that this happened. First one was Peter Breggin. I give him great credit. But now look at the titles of these books. The Real Anthony Fauci, Deception, by Anthony Fauci. Courage to Face COVID-19, you have it. So you have part of the timeline, and in these books, 2 crimes are developed. 2 crimes are, in a sense, alleged. The first crime is fraud. We were not told what was going on. Fauci should have come out and said, we were creating a virus in Wuhan, China, and it must have gotten out. That would have been the honest thing to say in December of 2019. He committed fraud and lied to America. He lied to the president and said, well, we don't know where it came from. That's fraud. That's clear. They all were involved in fraud. The second crime was mass negligent homicide. Large numbers of people dying. I just testified in the U.S. Senate. Senator Blumenthal made a big deal about this. People died due to COVID. They did. Now, he's exaggerating it. The number was smaller, but it's still real. How many people know someone or know of someone in your circles who died of COVID, who really died of COVID? Yes, it's real. People died of COVID. But why is that a crime? It's a crime because early treatment was intentionally suppressed. Everything was suppressed. Everything. From zinc and hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin and vitamin D and nasal sprays and gargles and monoclonal antibodies and colchicine and steroids. Even Paxlovid was suppressed. It didn't matter if it was a cheap generic or an expensive Operation Warp Speed drug. There was intentional suppression of early treatment, all treatment. There were never public service announcements on how to get treatment for COVID. Your doctor never told you this. The hospital never had seminars on it. It was universal, worldwide. Suppress all treatment for one reason: to prepare the world to accept mass vaccination. That's the only conclusion. But mass negligent homicide was not just due to the infection. It occurred after the vaccine. How many people know someone who was injured, disabled, or sadly died after the vaccine? Let's see a show of hands. It's about 85% in most groups. This group is about 75%. Dying with the vaccine. Fraud and mass negligent homicide to this day has not been pursued by any special prosecutor assigned. People can write books, they can make statements, but there's no pursuit, no justice. Next slide. Even vitamin D was villainized. Eric Naputi, who's a chiropractor, but he's also an entrepreneur, purveyor of vitamins, was hotly pursued by the Federal Trade Commission to the tune of nearly $500 million. He doesn't have $500 million. And it was over vitamin D because every single study showed that vitamin D was beneficial. There was randomized trials, I think 7, showing it was preventive. If people actually took vitamin D, it would prevent COVID. There was trials of vitamin D showing reductions in the severity of COVID. Even inpatient vitamin D did something. People weren't given vitamin D in the hospital. Next slide. Nasal sprays and gargles. Every study showed the virus was replicating in the nose. Everybody knows this because the swabs were used in the nose. Well, if the virus is in the nose, why don't we use a spray or gargle to disrupt viral replication and reduce this amplification that the virus was doing in order to allow mucosal immunity to take over? Every study was positive. It didn't matter what was used. Even saline worked. Even saline. Even an in-hospital randomized placebo-controlled trial worked in the hospital, and hospitals didn't offer it to patients. Patients could have done it themselves, reducing the viral burden in the nasopharynx. Next slide. This is the best trial. This is the Baumforth trial. This is a prospective, double-blind, randomized, controlled trial using a xylitol-based spray. This would be like a clear, XLER spray, versus a control. 71%, next slide, 71% reduction in COVID-19 illness. Better than a vaccine. A simple nasal spray. Next slide. I'm the only public figure in the world to question the COVID-19 vaccines before they came out. That's in August of 2020. In public, big time. Myself and Scott Atlas were the two doctors asked by The Hill, which is widely read by the House, the Senate, and the White House, to write op-eds every month in The Hill on the pandemic. Scott was focusing on masks and lockdowns. He ultimately was asked to be in the White House. I was focusing on spread of the illness, but this one was the showstopper. Even Robert F. Kennedy didn't question these vaccines before they came out. The entire world was in a trance. I wasn't. Now, I didn't think they were going to cause the damage that they've caused, but in the op-ed, I clearly said I didn't think they were going to work. We should never gamble with a vaccine to handle a pandemic. Never. Never. We never vaccinate into a widely prevalent pandemic. Why? It's the same reason why we wouldn't give the same antibiotic to everybody in the hospital. The virus is going to outsmart the vaccine and quickly become resistant to the vaccine. And it happened fast. You know, there were positivity rates in our labor and delivery department when I was in Dallas at a major medical center of like 15%. 15% of people were just carrying this around. You don't give a vaccine to a population where the virus is going to say, oh, okay, that's easy. I'll just mutate. You know, there's always a population of virions. Never. It's bad business. It's bad thinking. It's terrible thinking. Any infectious disease doctor worth salt would never consider this. But yet, the world was in a mass trance. Next slide. Plenty of studies now showing the messenger RNA vaccines, Pfizer and Moderna, which have persisted, install the genetic code to produce the spike protein in the human body. We now have evidence the spike protein is circulating in the bloodstream. We have a manuscript in preparation. My patient, very good assay, for now over 2 years. We have very good evidence that the messenger RNA and even fragments called SV40 are in human cells in 2025 in someone who took a shot in 2021. The body just doesn't get rid of these, at least in some people. Next slide. The vaccine is everywhere in the body. This biodistribution study done by the Japanese for Pfizer, it's everywhere. Everywhere. I just posted in my Substack focal points. Everyone should sign up for focal points. Just published a Substack where in 48% of people who had a hemorrhagic stroke, the vaccine spike protein is right in the lining of the blood vessels in the brain. It's right there where the blood vessels burst. It's as plain as day. The vaccines cause hemorrhagic stroke. Probably some of you saw a picture of me with Barbara Orandello. I was with Barbara on Fox News with Laura Ingraham in 2021. She takes Moderna, and 2 days later, she has a near-fatal intracranial hemorrhage, needs emergency neurosurgery. Her retirement is ruined. The poor thing came to my Senate testimony in a wheelchair, all crumpled over on one side. No mention of hemorrhagic stroke in the Moderna package insert. No recognition by the medical community. She had to make a T-shirt saying, listen, this is what Moderna did to me. The vaccine injured in the United States are absolutely burning with anger right now. Their lives have been ruined. You can't support them enough. It's very, very important. Next slide. Brogna and colleagues, using mass spec, in half of people who took Pfizer Moderna found the spike protein in the bloodstream. We should never have a foreign protein in our bloodstream, that protein being designed in a Chinese biosecurity lab. It couldn't be a worse description of human biology. Next slide. Recent study from Yale, different assay, found about the same thing. This case, about a third of people now have spike protein in their blood. Next slide. Now, not all the vaccines are the same. The toughest question I had when I went on Joe Rogan, he goes, Dr. McCullough, and this is early on, Dr. McCullough, if the vaccines are so bad, why isn't everybody sick from the vaccine? Good question. You know, I said, well, it's a side effect, Joe. It shouldn't be in everybody. But now we know. And the answer comes from Dr. Verbeke Manichi in Copenhagen, Denmark, somebody who I've gotten to know. She was essentially a Dr. Fauci equivalent in Denmark, but she told the truth. The batches are not the same from vial to vial. From vial to vial. Do you know the Pfizer vaccines have been analyzed? There's a website you can go to called How Bad Is My Batch? How Bad Is My Batch? I've gone there. I've checked it out. There's about 4,500 batches. Only 25% of the batches has there been something serious like a death. 75% of the batches, there's almost nothing that happens. And that's what Manichi found. Thank goodness a lot of people are unharmed from these things. If you have a loved one who's taken a vaccine, anybody have a loved one who's taken a vaccine who's perfectly fine? Yeah, I do. Thank goodness. They probably got a dud. But some people, they've had probably hyperconcentrated messenger RNA, contamination, something else is explaining why they got a bad batch. Next slide. 4 major areas of vaccine damage to the body, for sure in the medical literature. 4,000 papers: cardiovascular damage, neurologic, hematologic, blood clots, and immunologic, autoimmune problems. For sure. This is not conjecture. Now, last month I was in the US Senate. The topic was myocarditis or heart damage. That's a good one. I'm a cardiologist. I am very qualified to testify in this. I was the lead witness. Pfizer and Moderna agree their vaccines cause myocarditis. It's in the package insert. They warn it can cause heart damage. Now, as a cardiologist, I wouldn't let a patient take any drug or vaccine that causes heart damage. It's not worth it. Particularly young people, it's really not worth it to suffer heart damage. It's in their package insert. There were warnings that came out by the FDA in May of 2021 and the CDC. Young men, ages 18 to 24. The warnings come out in May, and the National Football League in September mandates it. How can they? The athletes need cardiac performance. Again, the warnings are in May, the military mandates in September. Our military, our fighting soldiers, they need their cardiac function. You can't explain it. You can't explain it. It makes no sense whatsoever. The country had to be in some type of mass hysteria. Mass hysteria. Next slide. Dr. Gissi showed this. Mine's updated. This is restricted to U.S. So where we were as of March, 19,365 Americans have died after the vaccine. Americans, okay? I just checked today. We're at about 19,400. It's still happening. 1,175 die on the same day they take the shot. Some right in the vaccine center. If a building collapsed today and 1,000 people died, every news station would be right on it. But yet 1,000 people dying in CVS or Walgreens or a vaccine center, no one's interested. Another 1,200 die the next day. I've examined all these VAERS reports and research, and we've taken random samples. For sure, the vaccine is the cause of death. The VAERS system implies causality. This is very important. Because as a doctor, I would never report anything to VAERS unless I was certain the vaccine was the cause. I have patients die occasionally. I have patients develop heart attacks and strokes. I don't report everything to VAERS. I report what I have judged to be caused by the vaccine. So VAERS implies causality by proxy of reporting. It's very important. Don't let anybody tell you, oh, VAERS is reported by anybody. It's reported by doctors. In fact, the CDC knows who is doing the reports. They have never disclosed that. They know. There's the first 3 pages on who is the doctor, what's their address, what's their office number. That's a doctor's. Can you imagine that? The doctors think that? And look at, before COVID-19, the average number of deaths in the system was 150 a year. It can happen, severe reactions. Astounding. 19,000. Next slide. Multiple papers. This one is one of the best to cite by Mead. He's formerly NIH. He's now at the McCullough Foundation as a scholar. The risks far outweigh any theoretical benefits. This is important. The real risks, heart damage, blood clots, death, far outweigh the theoretical benefits. Remember, vaccines only offer theoretical benefits. Even during childhood, vaccines are only theoretical, right? Listen, as a kid, I took all the vaccines. My mom took me in, I took them. I took more vaccines when I traveled abroad. I've taken many vaccines. But when I take a vaccine, it's only theoretical, right? I took the yellow fever vaccine. I took the typhoid vaccine. If I never come in contact with typhoid when I travel, I haven't gotten any benefit from that vaccine. It's just theoretical. But harms are real. So it's very important. Safety is real. It's binary. You either are okay or you're not. The vaccine is always theoretical. And I would make the case that we would never risk a single human life for a vaccine. When someone's perfectly well, they walk in and we risk their life with a vaccine for a theoretical benefit. Never. And I hope this new vaccine panel has been installed takes the same view. Not a single life lost or harmed by a vaccine. Not one. Next slide. 17 organizations, hundreds of lawmakers are calling for the COVID vaccines to be removed from the market. Not safe for human use. We've compiled it in this manuscript. Next slide. Here are some of the organizations. The vaccines are not safe for human use. Ron Johnson in the Senate is right. He's made this call. Marjorie Taylor Greene in the House is right. She has made the call. I made the call early, very early, on record in the Texas Senate in March of 2021. Not safe. When we say something's not safe, that means it's gone. We're not going to pontificate about it. It's not going to be a political argument. It's not going to be gone. Next slide. What can we do about it? Base spike detoxification. If we have spike protein in our body or our body's been exposed to it, it's a reasonable conclusion that if we can get rid of this, we could restore health for people who have symptoms. Next slide. Long COVID is an effect of spike protein in the body for a prolonged period of time. It's not anything else. A vaccine injury syndrome is very similar to long COVID. Next slide. Dijkstra and colleagues from Germany demonstrated that the majority of long COVID is really due to the vaccine, because people took the vaccine, they got loaded with spike protein, they get the infection, now they have both. But it's a vaccine problem in the majority. Next slide. In my practice, I've taken this very seriously because the heart damage can lead to heart failure or cardiac arrest. So I have a program where I carefully do a vaccine history. I carefully do a COVID history. I document how many exposures. I did it yesterday in the office. And then I make some decisions on what needs to be done in terms of just watchful waiting. Do we do blood testing for antibodies? Do we move forward with detoxification and medication? So there is a program on how to help the population. Sadly, there's no grand rounds at any medical school on this. There's no teaching to any students in medicine or nursing or elsewise. All the knowledge is in among the medical freedom doctors who have largely been ostracized. I've given grand rounds in virtually every major medical center in the United States, including UCSD, just an hour away. I was the visiting professor of medicine and named endowed lecturer at Harvard in 2019. That's pretty recent. The phone isn't ringing from Harvard about my papers on vaccine myocarditis. Next slide. Myocarditis is serious. Here's another paper I've published with Dr. Rose. The mortality rate in the cases that get reported to VAERS is 2.9%. The average kid is 24. Children or young adults should not face that. The Japanese published a similar paper. They concluded the mortality rate was 9%. No 20-year-old should face a medical illness with a 9% mortality rate. It's unconscionable what's happening. Next slide. I did my medicine training in Seattle. I'm very familiar with the paramedic system, one of the best in the world. Cardiac arrest rates skyrocketing in Seattle, skyrocketing with rollout of the vaccine. Population was contracting a bit through COVID, 98% vaccinated. It's as clear as day. And not only cardiac arrest skyrocketing, but the resuscitability of the cases decreasing. Paramedics came out and they can't save them. Next slide. We've published risk stratification based on COVID exposure, measurement of antibodies against the SARS-CoV-2, and what we should do about it. Next slide. If you're going to request a test from your doctor, request this one. This is the LabCorp Roche Alexis assay, antibodies against the spike protein. There's a test code and a CPT code. Normal is less than 0.8. If you're less than 0.8, you have not been exposed to the spike protein. If you're under 1,000, you're probably in good shape. The spike protein is out. You just have residual antibodies. Greater than 1,000, every study shows, and my clinical experience also corroborates this, that there is a bona fide risk of spike protein disease or damage in the human body. Okay, very important. Antibodies against the spike protein. I recently went to LabCorp myself to get a level. I had checked a level before. I checked it again. And the gal was drawing my blood. And I said, you know, are you familiar with this? And she rolled her eyes. Oh, yeah, I am. Like she's drawing it every day. Believe me, people know about antibodies against the spike protein. How many people have had checked their antibodies yourself? Yeah, about probably 15 or 20%. Add that to the list. Next slide. Spike detoxification. How do we get the spike protein out of the body? We don't have large prospective randomized trials. I'll just say that right now. The Biden administration invested $1 billion in long COVID. Not a single project even mentioned spike protein or measured it. Can you imagine spending $1 billion on a problem and not even actually examining the problem? Guess what? They came up with 0 drugs, 0 protocols, 0 advice for patients. $1 billion of our dollars wasted. Next slide. The spike protein travels in threes. It trimerizes, and it's very difficult for the body to break it down with enzymes. Any other protein, if you got staphylococcal protein in your body, you got lipopolysaccharide from E. coli, you got another protein in your body, it would be difficult to break down. It would be, your body would break it down. There are some proteins that are hard to break down from the body. I'll give you an example. Borrelia burgdorferi from Lyme disease. Once the Lyme disease proteins get in the body, very hard to break down and get out. I'll give you another example of a bug that gets in the body, very hard to break down, syphilis. It can stay in the body for decades. So the spike protein is along the lines of Lyme disease or syphilis. It stays in the body for a long time. Next slide. Japanese have been eating natto. Natto kinase, derived from the fermentation of soy, is now manufactured from the fermentation of chickpeas. Next slide. But what was demonstrated by Dr. Tanakawa is for sure it breaks down the spike protein, for sure, in intact cell and cell-like models. Thank goodness. Now, when we take a natto kinase supplement or eat natto, does it really get in the bloodstream? Next slide. Credit Dr. Tanakawa. It gets in the bloodstream. There's predictable pharmacokinetics. Yay! We've got something that actually does break down the spike protein, and it does get in the bloodstream, and it's reasonably safe given the caveats of increased risk of bleeding. When I first published an approach to this, and I put it in social media, it was instantaneous. A warning came up. This doesn't work. Wait a minute. How do they know? If I would have said, drink pickle juice, they wouldn't care. Only things that work get censored from the very beginning. Dr. Fareed is in the front row. We originally worked and published on hydroxychloroquine. It worked. It was modestly effective. Boom, it doesn't work. Ivermectin, there was an entire war on ivermectin. For sure, that worked. There's a theme here. Anytime something is censored, go right to it because it works. Next slide. Bromelain, derived from pineapples. Next slide. A big cup of pineapple like this contains about 40 milligrams of bromelain. It's a family of enzymes. It's proteolytic enzymes. That's good, but we need about 500 to make it into the human body in a decent dose. About 40% of it gets absorbed. Next slide. And so in the published studies, for sure, bromelain gets into the bloodstream, about 40% absorbed, and it does break down proteins. It actually prolongs the prothrombin time slightly, so it's an anticoagulant. Next slide. And the preclinical data show, again, it helps degrade the spike protein differently than nattokinase. So one of the principles that I've worked on in publishing on how to treat COVID and how to manage long COVID and vaccine injury syndromes is not rely on a single bullet. It's a mistake. When we're dealing with a pandemic and tough new illnesses, use multiple things in combination. Signals of benefit, acceptable safety, go into combinations, boom, and go with it, and study it the best we can. That's what we're doing. Next slide. Bromelain, by the way, is a drug. It's an FDA-approved drug as a topical. It's used in wound infections. It actually breaks down proteins. So for sure, bromelain's a drug. It's an FDA-approved drug. We just use it as a supplement approved by the Federal Trade Commission in medicinal quantities. So we don't need a prescription. Don't need a prescription for nattokinase. Don't need a prescription for bromelain. So now we're talking. Next slide. Curcumin. Curcumin is derived from turmeric. Indians eat, every person in India eats about 2,000 milligrams a day of it. Next slide. It blocks the spike protein. Multiple different preclinical studies show it. Next slide. Curcumin was actually tried as a treatment for COVID-19. Multiple prospective randomized trials showed it reduced the intensity and duration of symptoms. Curcumin is anti-COVID because it helps block the spike protein. Wonderful. It's, again, available over the counter. Next slide. So what we did, starting in 2023, is put these three in combination and began to use this with careful observation, published our first paper in the Journal of the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, the next one in the journal, Springer Nature Curious Journal of Biomedical Sciences. I'll tell you, additionally, I tend to use hydroxychloroquine when there's autoimmune syndromes. I tend to use colchicine very broadly. Colchicine is a prescription anti-inflammatory, which is mandatory in myopericarditis and now widely FDA endorsed for prevention of heart disease. So there should be a lot of colchicine prescribed. It's a natural product developed from the petals of a purple flower. In fact, the pill is purple. So look for a lot of use of colchicine, 0.6 milligrams a day. This became a McCullough protocol, base spike detoxification. Next slide. It finally got incorporated into a single product, which is the wellness company, Ultimate Spike Detox. Now, I'm the chief scientific officer of the company. That's my disclosure. And the Ultimate Spike Detox is high dose nattokinase, bromelain, curcumin, all together, out of the box, 2 capsules twice a day, must be on an empty stomach. The majority of people who have long COVID or vaccine injured should be on this program. In fact, worldwide, if you type in nattokinase in Amazon, the first thing that'll come up is McCullough protocol, and there's a bazillion companies making different combinations. That's fine. I didn't patent it because I don't want to constrain use worldwide. The world has been sickened by this. I want broad use, and a rising tide elevates all ships in the harbor. Next slide. Wellness Company has other products, including spike support, which is just nattokinase, and a few minor ingredients, ultimate spike detox, even kids. So kids can't take nattokinase, but they can take papain and some other proteolytic enzymes, and so the kid spike gummies down to age 8. So there's kind of a suite of products from the Wellness Company. Next slide. I had a chance to interview Dr. Shirasawa from Japan. He's published the first-in-man proof that taking these enzymes works. This was a Japanese man who had blood clots throttling in his carotid bulb after taking 4 Pfizer shots with brain fog. Shirasawa was horrified, thought this guy was going to have a fatal stroke. Puts him on an intensive enzyme regimen, next slide, which include nattokinase, bromelain, but also include papain and lumbrokinase and streptase and others. And he demonstrates resolution of these clots by virtual angioscopy within 4 months. For sure, this works. I am not ambiguous about this. McCullough protocol, base spike protein detoxification, nattokinase, bromelain, and curcumin as a base is the base. Now, we can do other things in addition. We can do prescription drugs. We can add N-acetylcysteine. We can do hyperbaric oxygen, but we can't miss the base. It's very important. This is a basic treatment. Next slide. I mentioned the failed Biden program, $1 billion, never measured spike protein or considered it. Next slide. At the Wellness Company, we have 4 products. You could do this yourself over the counter. In fact, I did a whole program on my show on this listen, there's so many people sick, I don't think we can rely on doctors. You can do this with 4 over-the-counter products. The Spike Detox in everybody probably for a year. Mind Lift for people with brain fog. Elevated Energy for people with post-exertional malaise. And Healthy Heart, I think, for anybody whose heart has been impacted. And there's a rationale for this. In these 4 products, there's a total of 26 different ingredients. I mean, there's quite a value here. There's only overlap in 2 products, and that's selenium. We use selenium, by the way, for two reasons. At a low dose, it helps absorption of other nutraceuticals, and at a high dose, it's needed for the heart. Next slide. What else do I do? For intensified detox, I have 1 manuscript in preparation. In fact, it's in review right now. Augmented N-acetylcysteine appears to have some spike degradative capabilities. It may boost the body's oxidative stress system. I don't think it can carry the day, but it looks assistive. For a loss of mental clarity, there's 1 paper from Switzerland, and again, I've treated thousands of patients. I have direct clinical experience. I think a nicotine patch does work at 7 milligrams a day. Suspected or recurrent SARS-CoV-2, persistent fevers, night sweats, pulmonary infiltrates, skin rash, craniofacial syndromes, ivermectin. Not ivermectin in everybody, but ivermectin in those patients, but at a good dose. Someone my size would take 36 milligrams a day for 90 days. Not piddly 12 milligrams here and there. I mean, we'd go after it with a good, solid dose. For POTS, or posterior orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, colchicine, because I think POTS probably is a reflection of subclinical myopericarditis. And then my go-to beta blocker is Nadolol. Nadolol, not metoprolol, but Nadolol. It has a special effect on the beta-adrenergic receptors. Autoimmune syndromes, multi-system inflammatory disorder, people who are ANA positive, hydroxychloroquine for sure has tremendous relief, and I've even used it in pediatric populations. Hydroxychloroquine has a tremendous effect when there's signs of autoimmunity in this pandemic period. Myopericarditis, colchicine is mandatory. In fact, it's been proven to prevent cardiac arrest. A drug in the setting of COVID vaccine myopericarditis, a paper from Germany with a challenge-rechallenge design. It does. It's that important. People are missing out on colchicine. Now, we use it for gout. It's used for some other illnesses. And now it's widely FDA approved to prevent heart attack and stroke. We should be prescribing just 1 tablet a day. The dose for gout is much higher, but 1 tablet a day, colchicine, at least for a year. Myopericarditis, before the pandemic, it was mandatory to use colchicine if it was due to Coxsackie virus. I have patients who go to the Mayo Clinic. They've taken the vaccine. They have evidence of myopericarditis. They don't get colchicine. The Mayo Clinic is not doing even basic standard of care for myopericarditis of any cause. So look for a lot of use of colchicine at 1 dose a day. It has a very, very low toxicity, and it's vital. I've had to use prednisone early on, and now we have, I have a series of 3 patients, one we've published, where the use of rapamycin, which is a drug that reduces the cell cycle. It's also being tested in longevity in a huge NIH trial, but a very low dose, 1 milligram a day. I found it to be safe, and we've published on it. It helped like a miracle. It's helped this young man recover from pericarditis. In virtually everyone, hyperbaric oxygen in every study so far has been beneficial. If you have hyperbaric chambers, you gotta use them. It really, really helps. And then hot saunas and perspiration. The spike protein and messenger RNA do come out in sweat. You can sweat it out. I tell people, go sweat. In Texas, it's not hard. I worked out yesterday, and I work out like a madman, and I must have lost, 2 liters of sweat. But sweating is a natural detoxifiant. And you'll have some of your sedentary patients that say, when's the last time you work up a sweat? We'll go, well, never. It's like, no, you get in a hot sauna or get outside and sweat. And I think that's one of the reasons why after the initial wave of cardiac arrests in athletes, I think that's the reason why the athletes cleared up. You don't hear about cardiac arrests in the athletes much anymore, no. I think they sweated it out, I really do. Next slide. So here's our case of rapamycin. This is a young man, Alexander Victory. He's a student at Iowa State University, had refractory MRI-proven vaccine myopericarditis. Could not make it go away. Steroids, multiple hospitalizations, 3 episodes of heart failure, on heart failure drugs. Extremely worried about cardiac arrest. Has autism. He's absolutely perseverating on his risk of cardiac death. I talked to him last week. He cannot get this out of his mind. He goes, I'm going to die of a cardiac arrest. It was his research that suggested that maybe rapamycin, which we use as an anti-inflammatory immunosuppressant in transplants, that it would work in myopericarditis. In fact, it did. I give him great credit. So he's been helped greatly. We have a follow-up MRI this week, but he hasn't had a cardiac arrest. By the way, you may wonder about Damar Hamlin, the Buffalo Bill who had a cardiac arrest. Remember him? I was on Tucker Carlson like the next day, and I told Tucker Carlson, A, he's going to walk out of the hospital and survive. I was the only one saying that. Mark Siegel, who's in my group at Fox, was saying, oh, they're raising like a funeral fund for him or something on GoFundMe. I said, no, he's going to walk out alive. Tucker's like, what? And I said, yeah, because young men, if we resuscitate them, they get prompt defibrillation, they're just going to be fine, which he was. But later on, myself and Michael Gutkin, another cardiologist, we wrote the Buffalo Bill's doctors, and we wrote the Buffalo Evening News. We said, we know he's got a vaccine cardiac arrest, even though he won't come out and say it. So you better do detoxification and the treatment. You better. Because it's my experience, these people don't need ICDs. This is the one version of cardiac arrest where we seem to be able to medically treat it. I know Pilot Snow, for instance, who had the cardiac arrest in DFW after taking the vaccine. He's an American Airlines pilot. He had a cardiac arrest in the jetway. He was resuscitated after 6 shocks. He took a defibrillator, which is the standard. If someone has a cardiac arrest, they should always get a defibrillator. I asked him a question about a year and a half later, very important question. I said, has your defibrillator ever gone off? He said, no. So detoxification is powerful. Colchicine is powerful. Remember that. Next slide. Next slide. We're kind of stuck on rapamycin. If I can have the next slide, which is the last one, see what you can do. Next one. There we go. So to finish and conclude, both SARS-CoV-2 infection and vaccination continue to contribute spike protein in the human body. The spike protein is pathogenic, it's thrombogenic, it causes blood clots, but it is a therapeutic target. Base spike protein detoxification is a proposal for nattokinase, bromelain, curcumin. It's the most widely used approach in the world. Even the Independent Medical Alliance, which used to be the Frontline Critical Care Group, the FLCC, that's their program as well. It's a McCullough Foundation program. And I think everybody ought to carefully consider this. Additional therapeutics are added depending on the post-acute sequelae syndrome. So I'll stop here. I'm Dr. Peter McCullough. Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully you've learned, a constructive approach to what's going on. Thank you. Thank you. And enjoy the book. The book you can read in about 2.5 hours. It's not a boring medical book. It's written by one of the best authors in the world right now. Again, thank you.